I'll never forget my first day on the Gulf horizon, the towering machinery, the relentless crash of the ocean, and the unshakable bond among the crew. Over time, the rigs became my second home, and the thrill of discovering oil ingrained itself in my soul. Every drill and pipeline signified progress towards securing a better future for my family, despite the long separations. But the job's demands, grueling hours, constant hazards, and the relentless pressure to succeed, took their toll over the years. Still, each paycheck was a reminder of the life I was building for my wife and kids. Little did I know, the sacrifices I made would soon lead me to the hardest decision of my career. It had been over a year since I'd last slept in my own bed, and I couldn't wait to get home. But nature had other plans. A massive storm was barreling toward us, forcing me to halt all operations on the rigs. The call wasn't easy, but with the storm's severity, I had no choice. We drilled 5 wells across the area, and shutting them down required meticulous coordination. Thankfully, the evacuation went smoothly. Once the rigs were secured, a helicopter brought the remaining team, including me, back to shore. I wasn't scheduled for time off, so my return would be a surprise. The thought of seeing my wife, kids, and even the neighbors brought a rare smile to my face. The job had been worth it. Over the last 3 years, my salary had tripled thanks to my expertise in angle drilling during the U.S. oil boom. 5 years ago, a promotion allowed me to start planning for early retirement. My income was split strategically, maxing out my 401k, investing 25% through a broker, and saving the rest in the bank. Caroline and I agreed to focus on paying off the mortgage and growing our savings. 20 years of smart investments built a financial safety net we were proud of. Our broker diversified our portfolio, favoring tech giants like Google and Amazon alongside steady blue-chip stocks. With me away so often, we filed taxes separately, with Caroline claiming deductions for the kids. The storm meant the rigs would stay offline until inspections confirmed their safety. With a hurricane crawling toward us, I had at least 2 months of unexpected downtime. I kept a close eye on the storm's progress since delays could cost millions in repairs. The industry had learned harsh lessons after a previous disaster cost billions, and I had a hand in drafting the new safety protocols. Spending a few million now to prevent lawsuits and environmental damage later was a no-brainer. Back home, Caroline and I had moved into the neighborhood years ago when she was pregnant with our first child, Kyle. Later, we had 2 more, Aaron and Emily, who were nearly grown now. Our neighbors, Mike and Olivia Carver, couldn't have kids and became like an extra aunt and uncle to ours. Mike was rough around the edges but excelled at sales, while Olivia was strikingly beautiful. If anyone could tempt me, it might have been her, though nothing ever came of it. Waiting at Cape Coral Airport for my flight to Springfield, I got a text from Emily asking me to call her. 14 months had passed since I last saw my kids, and it was getting harder to ignore the strain of distance. I called immediately. "Hey, sweetheart, what's going on?" I asked, using her childhood nickname, Buttercup. Her voice was steady, but her words hit me like a hammer. "Dad, Kyle's in the hospital. He's been shot. Uncle Mike's in jail for attempted murder, and Aunt Olivia is pregnant." I froze. "What? Are you serious?" I managed. "I knew you'd want the facts," she said, "but there's more. Mom might not tell you everything, especially since she's in the middle of this with Kyle and the neighbors." My heart raced as I tried to make sense of her words. "Okay, Buttercup," I said. "I'm heading to Springfield now, but we'll catch the first flight back to Cape in the morning. Skip school tomorrow and meet me at home. We'll sort this out." She paused before answering. "Mom's in Philly, actually. Macy's called all the regional managers to a meeting. She doesn't know yet." "You're at the hospital?" I asked. "Yes," Emily said. "I thought you needed to know first. I'll wait here for updates." I assured her I'd bring the insurance cards in the morning and hung up. As I waited for my flight, I couldn't help but think about my family. My years on the rigs had allowed me to rise from nothing to someone Caroline and the kids could rely on. Yet the distance it had put between us felt unbearable at times. I remembered the day I met Caroline. She'd been speeding through a Walmart parking lot, hit a patch of ice, and slid right into my old truck. It was an accident that changed my life forever. In the chaos of those memories, I glanced down at the leash in my hand. Zeus, our Rottweiler, sat obediently at my side. He'd been my companion through long walks on the shore during downtime and had kept the house safe when I was away. He'd be thrilled to see the kids again, but I wondered how he'd react to the tension waiting for us at home. Anyway, back to the parking lot. The damage to my truck was minimal, so we decided to head inside. Caroline bought me a sub and coffee, joking it was a thank you for being a good sport about the incident. When she took off her coat, I couldn't help but notice how stunning she was, and we hit it off instantly. Caroline gave me purpose. Before her, I was drifting aimlessly, living day to day. Within a month of meeting her, I enrolled in night classes to better myself. As our relationship blossomed, so did my drive. 8 months later, we were engaged, and 6 months after that, we were married. Starting offshore work soon after, I found her influence pushed me to excel. My performance improved, leading to bigger paychecks. Caroline pursued her ambitions as well, earning a business degree and climbing the ranks at Macy's. Her knack for retail merchandising earned her a store manager role in Cape, where her leadership transformed it into one of the top-performing locations in the region. Mike Carver, our neighbor, worked as an independent wholesaler, driving his route to sell tools to mechanics. While I never knew exactly how much he made, his lifestyle suggested he did well. Mike was an enigma, simple, carefree, and always paying in cash. Oddly, they had just one bank account, and it was in Olivia's name. Olivia, his wife, was a respected journalist and assistant editor for the local newspaper, as well as a fixture on several community boards. Despite our differences, Caroline and I were sixth-generation English Americans, and Mike and Olivia were African American. We became close. When our kids were younger, the Carvers often took them out, spoiling them as if they were their own. Mike liked to joke that they had adopted our children, and people often believed him. Even our kids started calling him Uncle Mike, and we felt fortunate to have them in our lives. As my plane carried me home, I struggled to make sense of Emily's call. Her revelations didn't add up, but she insisted everything was tied to our friendship with the Carvers. During a layover in Springfield, I killed time smoking a Marlboro outside the terminal. Springfield Airport's lack of indoor smoking areas was a hassle, forcing me to go through security again afterward. Offshore work had its perks, though, like cheap cigarettes free of sky-high taxes. I had brought 6 cartons back with me this time. I banned alcohol on the rigs, a move that made me unpopular with the crew but earned their wives' gratitude for the savings. Still, I couldn't help but brood over the hidden taxes baked into everyday American life. Politicians overspent and quietly introduced new taxes, and most people forgot about them over time. It reminded me of an old import tax from 1822 meant to support First Nations, money I doubted ever reached its intended recipients. As I lit another cigarette, a voice broke through my thoughts. "Hey, man. Long time no see." It was Tim, an old high school acquaintance. "Still smoking, huh?" he teased. "Caught me," I replied with a grin. "You're not looking bad for an old fart." "Where are you headed?" "Back to Cape," I said. "The rigs sent us home because of the weather." Tim chuckled. "Still working the rigs? When are you gonna quit being a redneck and get a real job?" "Soon, I hope," I answered. "I'm planning to find work that lets me stay home." "Caroline will be surprised." Tim raised an eyebrow. "You married Caroline Cruz?" he asked, genuinely taken aback. "Yep," I said. "Met her in Texas while she was in business college. Best decision I ever made." Tim nodded thoughtfully. "My sister and Caroline were tight in high school. They both liked dating black guys back then. My sister even married one, though it didn't last. He left after their second kid, but she's a lawyer now and doing fine." We chatted for a bit, reminiscing about old classmates before parting ways. The final leg of my journey seemed to stretch endlessly. When I finally arrived, Emily greeted me at the door with a hug that spoke volumes about her exhaustion and emotions. After a quick hello, we sat down to talk. "Dad," she began hesitantly, "over the past 2 years, I've noticed changes in Mom's routine. At first, I thought it was just because of her promotion, but one Friday night, I saw her having a romantic dinner with Uncle Mike. I couldn't believe it." I stayed silent, letting her continue. "It was odd because Olivia usually worked late on Fridays, and Mom was supposed to be at the store. So, my boyfriend and I started watching them. We'd see Uncle Mike park his truck at Macy's and then leave with Mom. They'd drive off together, sitting close, like a couple. I wasn't happy with what I was hearing, but I trusted Emily's honesty and listened intently. I told Kyle," she continued, "and he decided to dig deeper with some friends. They found out that Uncle Mike had rented an apartment where he met his lover, Mom. Her voice trembled as she added, Kyle broke the news to Aunt Olivia. She turned to him for comfort, and they became involved. Kyle told me last night that their relationship has been going on for over a year, and the baby Aunt Olivia is expecting is his. Uncle Mike can't have kids because of complications from childhood chickenpox. I poured myself a stiff drink, feeling like I needed it. How long has your mother been seeing Mike? I asked. At least 18 months, Emily admitted softly. They were already involved the last time you were home. And how did Kyle end up getting shot? I pressed. Emily hesitated. Mom wasn't there to meet Uncle Mike, so he went home and found Aunt Olivia and Kyle together. In the heat of the argument, Mike accidentally shot him. I let out a heavy sigh. What a disaster. I need to hear Kyle's side of this, but not right now. First, we'll handle the hospital paperwork and find a good divorce lawyer. When is your mom due back? Saturday morning, Emily replied. What are you going to do? I'm renting a car and staying at a hotel. I can't stay here, I told her. When I come back, we'll take care of some things. Tonight, I want you to call your mom on speaker so I can record it for my lawyer. Emily's face crumpled as tears started flowing. I've been dreading this day, she said. I prayed it would all go away, but it only got worse. Dad, I want to live with you. If that's what you want, Buttercup, I'll make it happen, I reassured her. I'm home for 2 months, so I have time to find a place and a new job. But we'll need to keep my return quiet for now. You mean it? She asked, hugging me so tightly I could barely breathe. Yes, but it might mean switching schools, I replied. Emily nodded, her grip firm. When the taxi arrived, Emily came with me. Before leaving, we called her school to excuse her absence. As we got into the car, I noticed Olivia watching us from her window. Moments later, she texted, I need to explain things to you. I replied, I know. I'll contact you after handling a few things. My daughter needs me now. It made sense she was home given the events of the day before. At the rental office, I picked a small car my wife would never expect me to drive. I'd always been a Ford guy. We checked into a modest motel in Marble Hill, far enough from home to remain unnoticed. After settling in, we went to Southeast Hospital to sort out insurance paperwork. Over lunch, Kyle called Emily to say that Olivia was with him and that he knew I was back. Emily firmly told him to keep quiet until we informed Mom that evening. Afterward, we visited a real estate office to look at businesses for sale, but nothing stood out. I asked the broker to keep me updated on new listings and scheduled house viewings for Friday. Back at the motel, I called my superiors to explain the situation. I hinted that I might resign after 20 years to prioritize my daughter, who was still a minor and wanted to live with me. I also scheduled a meeting with a lawyer for Monday. A quick look at our finances showed $50,000 in the house account and $250,000 in savings. With the house already paid off, a divorce seemed relatively straightforward, just splitting the house's value and funds. I'll be back soon, I told Emily before heading out. I'm going to talk to Olivia and get her side of the story. Olivia welcomed me immediately, the stress evident on her face. I'm sorry, Derek, she said. You shouldn't have come home to this mess. Want a drink while we talk? Sure, it's been a long day, I said as she poured. Start from the beginning. I was at work when Kyle asked to meet me privately, Olivia began. I thought it was an anniversary surprise, but he told me Caroline and Mike were having an affair. I didn't believe him until he drove me to Mike's apartment, and what we saw through the window left no doubt. Mike and your wife were together. She showed me photos on her phone, confirming the timeline Emily had given me. Can you text me those photos? I'll need them for the divorce, I asked. Olivia nodded, but her eyes widened. You know, your wife only dated black guys in high school, she said. Maybe all those little touches over the years weren't so innocent after all. You never know, I replied, brushing it off. But how did you and Kyle end up together? She sighed. Kyle's like you, Derek. He was there for me, supporting me and giving me strength. One night, after a bit of wine, I kissed him, and he kissed me back. That kiss had more love than I'd felt in years. 6 months ago, things went further. It wasn't revenge, it just happened. I nodded, understanding that my job and long absences had created similar cracks in my marriage. Thank you for being honest, I told her. I'll let Kyle decide what's best for both of you. He's been independent for a long time, and I'll support his choice." Olivia's eyes filled with tears. "Kyle said you'd handle it like this," she said. She went on to explain that Mike had been served divorce papers, which likely triggered his reaction. Under a court order to stay away, he'd gone home, found Olivia with Kyle, and lost control. Knowing Mike carried a gun for work, it all added up. "Olivia, for now, it's crucial people believe I'm not in town," I said. "That's why I rented this car. Emily wants to live with me, and I'll make that happen." I left with the confirmation I needed, proof of the affair and a timeline matching everything Kyle and Emily had shared. Back at the motel, I told Emily everything. "Dad, it all makes sense," she said. "Kyle's always been mature for his age. The photos and what he told me back it up. I guess I'm partly to blame," I admitted. "With me gone so much, he stepped up as the man of the house. I wasn't much older than him when he was born." Before Emily could ask, I said, "Regardless of my feelings, Kyle has to make his own decisions. It's their life to live." "Should I call Mom and let her know what's going on?" Emily asked. "First, download an app to record the call," I suggested. She tested a few before finding one that worked. We both installed it. After 3 rings, Caroline picked up, and Emily put the call on speaker. "Mom, I need a note for missing school today," Emily began. "Why did you miss school? Are you feeling sick?" Caroline asked. "No, I was at the hospital with Kyle last night and was too exhausted to go," Emily explained. "What happened to Kyle? Will he regain full use of his shoulder?" Caroline asked, her concern evident. "He was shot at close range in the shoulder," Emily stated bluntly. "What? How did that happen?" "Don't leave anything out," Caroline demanded. Emily didn't hold back. "It happened because you weren't where you usually are on Wednesday afternoons," she said firmly. "What are you implying?" "I was at work," Caroline said, her voice wavering. "No, Mom. You were at 644 Morgan Avenue, apartment 4, with Uncle Mike." The silence was deafening. After a long pause, Caroline asked, "How long have you known?" "Almost from the start," Emily replied. "I found out by accident when I saw you having dinner with Uncle Mike. Kyle followed up and found your love nest, even taking Aunt Olivia there to catch you both in the act. The pictures he took are graphic." Caroline's sobbing came through the line before she finally said, "I'll be flying home Saturday morning. We need to talk before your father gets back." "There's more," Emily said. "Uncle Mike was served divorce papers at your love nest last Wednesday. He went home in a rage, determined to hold on to his marriage while keeping the affair. His actions pushed Aunt Olivia and Kyle together. Uncle Mike violated the court order, stormed into his old house, and found them together. In a rage, he grabbed a gun and shot Kyle." Caroline's voice trembled. "Where are Kyle and Uncle Mike now?" she asked. "Uncle Mike's in jail for attempted homicide," Emily replied. "Kyle will recover, but he needs extensive rehab." "So, Mom, do I tell Dad, or should he find out from tomorrow's headlines?" "Give me a few minutes to gather my thoughts, and I'll call him myself," Caroline said. "It's best I handle this." "Okay, Mom," Emily replied. "Oh, by the way, you're going to be a grandmother. Aunt Olivia is 3 months pregnant, and Kyle is the father. She also plans to serve you with papers when you get home." Caroline broke down completely, but Emily stayed composed, ending the call when her mother failed to respond. I poured 2 drinks, one straight for Emily and a sour mash with soda for myself. Setting hers down, I said, "Let's toast. You handled yourself better than most adults would in that situation. I'm proud of you, Buttercup." We clinked glasses, finishing our drinks in silence as we waited for Caroline's next move. When my phone finally rang, I let it go to voicemail. After pouring another round, I played the message on speaker. Caroline's voice was calm but strained. "Call me when you have a moment. Uncle Mike accidentally shot Kyle, and we need to talk." "Let's check the news first," Emily suggested, opening her laptop. The front page headline hit us like a truck: "Husband shoots wife's lover." The article laid bare everything: our tangled relationships, the shooting, and the startling revelation that Mike Carver wasn't even his real name. His true identity was Killian Holmes, a man with a record for petty theft and an outstanding warrant for possession of pills with intent to distribute. His fingerprints had exposed his past. I immediately called the police, informing them about Mike's tool truck. You might want to get a warrant to search it, I said. When asked why, I replied, because no one has ever actually seen him sell anything out of it. Then, I looked up Tim Roberts on Facebook and found his number. His wife answered, and I explained that I had run into Tim at the airport and needed the name of his sister Chloe's ex-husband. His name is Killian Holmes, she said. He owes over 16 years of child support. Well, he's in jail in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, under the name Mike Carver, I informed her. Are you serious? She gasped. Yes. And he was also having an affair with my wife, Caroline Cruz, I added. Oh my God. Chloe will be shocked. Can I give her your number? She asked. Please do, I replied. Emily stared at me, wide-eyed. Dad, Mom must have known who he was when you first met them, she said. What other lies will we uncover? I don't know, I admitted, but it seems like they were reliving some warped version of their glory days. The deeper we dug, the more questions arose. When there was a knock at the door, Emily answered it, and Olivia stepped inside. I handed her a drink and showed her the article. Olivia was as shocked as we were. Emily played the recording of her call with Caroline for Olivia, and I added, there's a chance your marriage to Mike isn't even legal. You should have your divorce lawyer look into it. Olivia's face fell. I've been at the hospital all day, she said. I was heading home when I got your text. There's no way he's getting bail. It gets worse, I said. Mike has 2 grown kids, a son and a daughter. His ex-wife was Caroline's best friend in high school. Olivia's expression was unforgettable. They knew from the start, she whispered, tears foaming. If he had kids, why didn't I get pregnant sooner? He might have had a vasectomy before meeting you, I suggested. The room grew quiet as we processed the revelation. Then I said, we need to search our homes. If Mike was hiding something illegal, Caroline might have been helping him. It's better to be safe. That sounds far-fetched, Olivia said, but he did stay out overnight regularly. Then why did Caroline cover for him? I pressed. Did you ever see bills for his supposed purchases? Mike always said the corporation handled everything, Olivia replied. But I know his Outlook account. We could check it. At Olivia's house, we logged in and discovered 4 unknown email addresses linked to his main account, clear signs of hidden activities. Contact the police tomorrow and give them access, I told her. I'm heading home to search for money or pills. Emily followed me back, and I grabbed a flashlight to check the attic. After moving the rental car, I climbed up and found 5 large trash bags stuffed in a corner. Dropping the first bag to the floor, Emily rushed over. Move it out of the way, I said, tossing another. The second bag split open, spilling bundles of $20 bills. My first thought after finding the bags of cash was whether Olivia's house also contained drugs. After hauling all 5 bags down, I discovered a flat, 6th bag. It was Mike's ledger. Emily, go tell Olivia what we found while I check these bags, I said. She returned with Olivia a few minutes later. The 5 bags were stuffed with cash, and the ledger detailed Mike's illicit activities. Derek, can you check my place? Olivia asked. Right after I called the police, I replied. A patrol car arrived quickly. Then I went to Olivia's house, where I found a chest of cocaine in her attic. I placed Mike's ledger with it and called the police again, this time requesting a detective. It took over 3 hours for the officers to collect the cash, drugs, and our statements. From the shooting to the discovery of the cash and cocaine, we had to explain everything. Before leaving, the detective informed us, we'll be taking Caroline into custody for questioning when she returns on Saturday. The money can't be linked to anything right now, but it will be logged as unclaimed and voluntarily turned in by Mr. Boyd. Thank you, officer, I said. What about the drugs found at my house? Olivia asked nervously. Since Mike Carver lived there, and you turned them in voluntarily, you won't be charged. He will, the detective explained. Will you return with a search warrant tomorrow? Olivia asked. Give me his email and password. We'll check it directly, the detective replied. If you find any small amounts of drugs in the meantime, flush them. Most of what he had is likely in his truck, which we're towing for a search. After the police left, I sighed. I could use a stiff drink. Olivia secured her house and joined Emily and me at mine. Are you going to tell Mom what's happening? Emily asked. It's better to let the detective handle it, I said. Tomorrow, while you're at school, I'll finish searching both houses. Thanks, Derek. I appreciate it, Olivia said. You can stay here tonight, I told her. Kyle's old room is available. Around midnight, sirens woke us. Police had caught someone attempting to break into Olivia's house. An unmarked car had been parked on our street, keeping watch. At 5 a.m., I sat outside with coffee and a cigarette and decided to call Caroline. She answered immediately. Derek, it's a mess here. Mike accidentally shot Kyle, but he'll recover. The police are holding Mike until they finish their investigation. Have you talked to Olivia? No. Emily and I have been at the hospital, I lied. Any word on when you'll be home? We want to see you. We're watching the weather. If we evacuate, I'll head home sooner than planned, she said. Promise to let me know if that happens so I can get things ready, Caroline added. Okay, I replied, ending the call. It was clear from her tone that she would never admit the truth. Whatever feelings we had once shared were gone, and I realized I could move forward with the divorce without regret. After dropping Emily at school, Olivia followed me to return the rental car. We picked up my luggage and returned the hotel key. I suggested Olivia take Kyle's apartment key and stay there temporarily. I then met with a real estate broker, toured 4 houses, and made a cash offer on a new build in a subdivision. I left a sizable deposit, requested a 5-year warranty for a quick closing, and bought new locks for added security. I texted Olivia and Emily with updates. Back at the house, I continued my search. There were no drugs, but I found $10,000 in bearer bonds. The news later reported that police had found items at our homes linked to the shooting, which would likely deflect suspicion from us. Changing the locks and security codes, I stumbled upon expensive jewelry I didn't know Caroline owned. Finally, in the darkest corner of the attic, I found more cash hidden in bags. I called the detective using the card he gave me. I've found more cash, I informed him. When they arrived, I let them take the 20 bags, though I kept a few bundles for myself from each. Could Mike have been dealing drugs for the entire 20 years we were neighbors? I asked. Given that he lived under an alias even longer, it's very possible, the detective replied. There are plenty of cases where criminals hide in plain sight for decades. I'm eager to question your wife about how long she's been involved. One more thing, I added. Mike, or Killian, was my wife's high school best friend's husband before he married Olivia. His ex, Chloe, might fly in on Saturday to confirm everything. This just keeps getting more interesting, the detective said, smiling as Olivia pulled in. Does his current wife know? Yes, and I'm about to search her house more thoroughly, I said. After last night's break-in, it's necessary. Expect another call if needed, the detective said. We found cocaine in a false floor in his truck. Mike's done for good. After the police left, Olivia joined us. Expect a call from my lawyer, she told the detective. He's working to annul my marriage immediately. We spent the rest of the day searching Olivia's house, flushing anything suspicious. She packed her belongings and moved into Kyle's apartment for safety. Among her things, we found additional bearer bonds, which I suggested she keep. I've made an offer on a house, I told her, and I'm using some bonds for the payment. Do you think Caroline was helping Mike, or did he con her too? Olivia asked. It's hard to say, I replied. We've had each other's keys for years. Mike could have hidden things when we weren't home. What surprises me is that he didn't legitimize his savings. Later, I visited Kyle, who was recovering slowly. Olivia and I plan to live together to see if we can make the age gap work, he told me. That sounds mature and well thought out, I said. Thanks, Dad. I appreciate everything you've done for Olivia, he said. I don't know how you're handling this, Kyle added. I may not like what your mom did, but I wasn't there for her because of my job, I admitted. Loneliness led her elsewhere. If I ever have another relationship, my lifestyle will have to change. Emily chimed in, you don't hate her for what she did. No, Buttercup, I said. I put work first for years and left raising you to her. When you grew up, she had no one giving her the attention she needed. It doesn't excuse her choices, but I understand them. I'm sad, but I can't bring myself to hate or condemn her, I admitted to Kyle. Besides, she might have bigger problems. Like what? Kyle asked. If the police connect her to what Mike was doing, she could end up in prison, I said. The weight of the truth left both my kids silent. Saturday morning, I received word that my house offer was accepted. I headed to the broker's office, using some bearer bonds for the deposit. As I finished, a text came through. Can we meet? I'm Tim's sister, Chloe. I replied, where are you? At the airport, she texted back. I responded, I'll be there in 15 minutes. You got an excellent price on your new home, the broker remarked. I'm surprised they accepted so quickly. That's why I asked if any others had sold yet, I said. Nothing spurs interest like a solid sign. At the airport, I immediately spotted Chloe. She was the only one there, the last flight having just departed. She was attractive, with brown hair that framed her face softly. Dressed in simple jeans and a casual top, she exuded effortless class. As she approached, she smiled. You look just like the photo Tim sent me. Nice to meet you, Mr. Boyd. Call me Derek, I replied, shaking her hand. We went to the airport restaurant for an early lunch. As we talked, I explained my situation, including Caroline's affair. She noticed I wasn't wearing a ring, and I told her I had no reason to anymore. Chloe shared that after her divorce, she had reverted to her maiden name. While eating, we had a view of the arriving Springfield flight. Caroline walked through the gate, and I waved. Chloe turned to see who I was signaling and froze when Caroline locked eyes with us. Caroline's face turned pale. She hadn't been keeping up with local news and had no idea what was coming. From our table, we watched a detective approach her, show his badge, and escort her to collect her luggage. She didn't know you were in town, did she? Chloe asked. No, we kept it quiet, I said. Whatever she was planning is over. She's about to find out about the cash, pills, and ledger we discovered. Can I handle your divorce case? Chloe asked. It'd be satisfying to take her down. Plus, the fact that she and my ex were involved raises a lot of questions. Can you manage it while traveling back and forth? I asked. I run my own divorce firm remotely, she said. Plus, I'll be here dealing with my deadbeat ex anyway. I smiled. Looks like we have a deal. If you've got a printer, we can start today. We loaded Caroline's luggage into my truck, and I drove Chloe to the county jail. She wanted to confront her ex. An hour later, she returned. He was shocked to see me, Chloe said. He asked how I found him, and I told him it was thanks to you. I also mentioned the police had seized the pills, money, and ledger. His face went white. I called the detective to update him. We'll compare Caroline's handwriting with the ledger, he said. If it matches, we can charge her with accessory to the drug operation. Later, Chloe and I returned to my place to begin drafting the divorce petition. While I brewed coffee, Chloe worked on the paperwork. I explained how Caroline and I had handled our finances separately, a choice that could keep most of my savings out of the divorce proceedings. Smart move, Chloe said. We can argue that it wasn't marital property. I told her I didn't want the old house, given everything that had happened there. Could Caroline afford to buy me out? She asked. Based on how we split our funds, she should be able to, I replied. Within 2 hours, we finished the petition and printed the documents. Later, Emily returned from hanging out with friends. After introducing her to Chloe, I explained who she was. Emily, this is Chloe Roberts, I said. Her family still lives in Roundtree. Chloe, meet my daughter, Emily, who'll be moving in with me next week once we buy furniture. Emily's eyes lit up. What did you buy, Dad? A newly built house, I replied. 3 bedrooms, an open floor plan, a 2-car garage, an unfinished basement, and a raised deck. What about landscaping? She asked. It's bare for now, I admitted. I'm planning to add a pool after closing. Emily squealed with excitement. She'd wanted a pool for years. As dinner approached, I asked where they'd like to eat. Both chose Ruby Tuesday for the salad bar. Afterward, we dropped by Enterprise so Chloe could rent a car. Emily invited her to join us on Sunday to shop for furniture, and Chloe agreed. On Monday, I finalized the house purchase with the remaining bearer bonds. Later that morning, I watched in court as charges were read against Mike and Caroline. Mike was denied bail, while Caroline's bail was set at $500,000. Chloe served Caroline with divorce papers on my behalf and handed her ex-husband papers for unpaid child support. As we left the courthouse, Chloe and I walked hand in hand, knowing Mike and Caroline had noticed. That afternoon, Chloe found a letter on her rental car at her parents' house. It was a ransom note, stating they had Emily and demanding everything I hadn't turned over to the police. I told Chloe to reply, agreeing to meet at Trail of Tears State Park at midnight. At home, I prepared, packing propane canisters, a welding torch, an old tent, and my crossbow. Under the cover of darkness, I set up the tent at the park and rigged a trap at the cliffside viewing area. I loosened the railing bolts and tied a bag stuffed with papers to make it appear valuable. When Gavin, one of Mike's associates, arrived, I confronted him with the crossbow. "You'll ensure Emily's safe return before I hand over this bag," I said. "And if I don't?" Gav asked nervously. "I'll shoot you and hunt down your brothers," I replied coldly. Gav's eyes darted nervously, realizing the crossbow held 3 loaded arrows. "Mike thought you'd gone soft," he muttered. "He's planning to escape and needs the bearer bonds to fund it." "So, you're in the ledger too?" I asked. "How do you know about that?" Gav stammered. "I gave it to the cops," I said. "It's only a matter of time before they get to you. If Emily's unharmed, you might want to use what's in that bag to disappear." Sweating profusely, Gav made the call, instructing his brothers to release Emily and flee. He knew the situation had spiraled out of control. 15 minutes later, Chloe called to confirm that Emily had arrived safely and was unharmed. Relieved, I shut off the lights and faded into the shadows. Gav leaned over the loosened railing to grab the bag, but as it wasn't secured, his weight sent him tumbling over the edge. I slipped back into the tent and slept soundly through the night. It took 2 weeks for them to recover Gav's body, and Mike didn't take the news well. Early Tuesday morning, I drove to Chloe's parents' house. Emily ran out to greet me, and I was invited in for breakfast. Over eggs and coffee, I learned that the county sheriff was retiring and that Chloe's father, Tim, held sway in the local Democratic Party. As we talked, I floated the idea of running for sheriff. Tim's face lit up. "Would you be willing to start the state qualification courses?" he asked. "Absolutely," I said. "Then I think you've officially begun your campaign," he replied, grinning. The pride in Emily's eyes was unmistakable as she said, "One thing I know about my dad, when he sets his mind to something, he gets it done." After breakfast, I handed Emily my phone and had her listen to the recording of my conversation with Caroline. Watching her reactions was fascinating. "Mom was never going to be honest with you, was she?" Emily asked. "No," I admitted. "I'm starting to wonder if she used my money to help Mike get back into the pill business." The room went quiet as we processed the thought. "I think we should keep what happened after Chloe found the ransom note to ourselves," I said. Things didn't go the way Mike and Caroline planned. I called the detective to warn him Mike might attempt an escape soon. He chuckled. "You'd have made a good cop with your knack for uncovering things," he said. On the drive back to Cape, my phone rang. It was Caroline. "I'll be out on bail in 2 hours," she announced. "Can I get access to the house?" Chloe and Emily watched me carefully, curious about my response. "The house? You can have it this afternoon," I said. "My lawyer will bring your car to the Love Nest and hand over the keys. Emily and I will take what we need while you're at work this week." Before she could reply, I hung up. Later, Chloe and I headed to the new house to supervise deliveries. Both she and Emily were thrilled with the open floor plan and spacious design. Emily eagerly picked her bedroom, delighted it had its own bathroom and walk-in closet. "Dad, should we take pots, pans, and basics from the old house?" she asked. "No," I said after a moment's thought. "Let's start fresh. Once we pack our personal items, you and Chloe can shop for the rest. That'll give you privacy until you get curtains," Chloe added, noting the built-in blinds. As we left, my son Kyle and Olivia emerged from the house across the street. I introduced everyone, and it was amusing to see Olivia and Chloe sizing each other up. Despite their different backgrounds, they had similar builds, which explained my attraction to both. Back at the old house, I packed quickly, stashing the bearer bonds I'd kept at the bottom of one wardrobe box. In the attic, I retrieved the bundles of cash I'd set aside. I also reminded Emily to change her passwords before bringing her laptop. After unpacking, Chloe and Emily went shopping for household essentials while I piled our old furniture in the yard to burn. By the time I called AT&T to set up the internet, Chloe and Emily returned with a truckload of items. The delivery crews had already set up the basics, the bedrooms, family room, and kitchen table were ready. We had what we needed to start our new life. Later, Chloe and I delivered Caroline's car to her. While Chloe went inside, I waited in the truck. An hour later, she returned. "Did you get some answers?" I asked. "Not really," she said. "Their relationship started after my marriage ended. Caroline planned to divorce you after Emily graduated. They've been together about 6 years, and Killian has been dealing pills the whole time. Caroline claims she didn't know about the stash in your house, but I don't believe her." I recorded the conversation. "Should we send it to the detective?" "Yes," I said, grinning. Chloe smiled, then asked, "Am I right in thinking you're interested in where our relationship might go?" "I thought we were already working on that," I said. "Even your parents noticed." Chloe moved closer, saying, "Emily suggested KFC or fish and chips for dinner." We picked up KFC and returned home, where Emily had been busy. She'd washed sheets, organized groceries, and run the dishwasher. I was pleasantly surprised to find she'd also picked up a bottle of sour mash and soda for a celebratory drink. That evening, I unpacked in the master bedroom while the ladies set up towels, mats, and an alarm clock. Emily had chosen shower soap and shampoo for me. Once they finished, I carried the empty boxes to the burn pile, watching the flames dance as I reflected on the day. My thoughts were interrupted by a call from Caroline. "It's all gone," she said bitterly. "Where is it?" "Call the detective and ask," I replied, laughing. "You knew," she accused. "How did you get Emily back?" "Ask Gav or his brothers, if you can find them," I said before hanging up. Later, Kyle called. "Dad, we bought the house across the street." Mom called me, but I told her off. She wasn't happy, so expect her to blame you. He asked about Olivia and Chloe's relationship. I told him they'd been used by the same man and should focus on supporting each other. 6 months later, my family gathered to await the election results. My parents, Chloe's parents, Olivia, Kyle, and Emily were all there, taking turns holding my newborn grandson. Caroline and Mike were serving life without parole, and my divorce was finalized. My former employer had granted me early retirement, returning $6 million seized in the investigation. Emily finally got her swimming pool, and Chloe's business thrived with 4 staff working from our home office. I knelt in front of Chloe before joining the crowd and asked, "Will you marry me?" She said yes, and I slid the ring onto her finger just as the news declared me the winner of the election. Tim beamed with pride, not only because of our engagement but because there was a new sheriff in town.